The line between a leader and a god complex is so thin that most people don't even notice when they've crossed it. Some people can't handle a little bit of power without turning into mini gods. Like, bro, you became a supervisor for 3 days, and now you walk around like your lungs breathe purer oxygen than the rest of us. Or those influencers who act like liking their post is a religious duty. Yeah, this one's for them. And maybe even for you, if you've ever confused respect with worship. Because here's the dark truth. When respect turns into worship, power turns into poison. And when you start demanding respect instead of commanding it through who you are, you're already halfway to building your own cult. 1. The thin line between respect and worship. There's a very thin line between being respected and being worshipped. Respect is earned through consistency, through how you carry yourself when no one's watching. Worship, though, that's built on delusion, and it's dangerous. When people stop admiring you and start obeying you, that's not leadership anymore. That's control. It's not about respect. It's about feeding your ego's bottomless pit. The sad part? Most people don't even notice when they cross that line. They start thinking, I deserve this. What you've earned is respect, not worship. The moment you start craving admiration like it's oxygen, you're not a leader anymore. You're a junkie hooked on validation. 2. The God complex begins. Let's talk about that God complex. It starts small, like an itch for recognition. You want people to notice your work, your effort, your status. That's normal. But soon, recognition isn't enough. You want reverence. You want people to speak softer around you, to walk on eggshells when you're mad, to nod when you talk, even when you're wrong. And then, boom, you've developed a God complex. You start confusing fear for respect, silence for loyalty, and attention for love. You become addicted to control, to the sound of your own name being glorified. And worst of all, you start to believe that people owe you respect, instead of realizing that respect should never be demanded. Listen, respect that's forced isn't real. It's just fear wearing a polite mask. If you have to keep saying, put some respect on my name, maybe you're not actually someone who commands it, you're someone who craves it. 3. Respect should be commanded, not demanded. Let me make this clear. Respect should be commanded naturally, not demanded like rent money. You command respect when your presence speaks before you do, when your actions echo louder than your words, when your energy, your discipline, your aura, your calmness makes people straighten up when you walk in the room. That's what true strength feels like. It's quiet. It's self-assured. You don't need to scream for validation because your character already says, I'm not to be messed with. The people who keep demanding respect are usually the ones who don't deserve it. They think respect comes from being feared, but fear fades, aura doesn't. When your respect depends on how loudly you demand it, it's not respect. It's obedience in disguise. 4. Why people worship power. Now, why do people even start worshiping others in the first place? Simple. Because worship is easier than thinking. It's easier to bow than to build. Easier to obey than to question. Easier to follow someone blindly than to lead yourself through chaos. That's why so many people confuse confidence with divinity. They see someone who looks unshaken and say, wow, this person must know everything. They just learned how to look like it. People start worshiping because it makes them feel safe. They get direction without responsibility. They say, he'll lead me, instead of, I'll figure it out. And before they know it, they're kneeling to someone's ego instead of listening to their own conscience. 5. The power addiction. Now here's where it gets dark. When people start worshiping you, you feel it. It's intoxicating. You get addicted to attention, validation, being the one everyone listens to. And suddenly, you don't want truth. You want praise. You stop surrounding yourself with honest people and start collecting yes men like Pokemon cards. No one can question you anymore because you mistake honesty for disrespect. You start to believe your own hype. You stop being a leader and start being a performer, obsessed with the applause. That's how the God complex eats you alive. And it's wild, because the more power you chase, the less human you become. You lose empathy. You lose humility. All that's left is ego, starving, defensive, and terrified of irrelevance. 6. The follower's trap. Now let's flip the mirror to the followers. You ever meet people who defend their idols even when they're dead wrong? He didn't mean it. She's just being real. No, they're being delusional. And you're enabling it. That's the danger of worship. It kills your judgment. You stop thinking, you start justifying, you stop analyzing, you start defending, and the person you worship, they stop respecting you, because people who worship you don't challenge you. They just inflate you. And that's how corruption grows quietly, through blind loyalty disguised as respect. You think you're being loyal, but you're really being controlled. And every time you silence your truth to please someone else's ego, you're not showing respect. You're surrendering your identity. 7. Real respect is built on equality. Let me tell you something that'll offend a few people. Real respect only exists between equals. When you admire someone but can still question them, that's respect. When you can disagree without being scared, that's maturity. When your admiration doesn't erase your individuality, that's balance. Respect isn't about hierarchy. It's about recognition, recognizing value in others while still knowing your own. That's why people who truly command respect don't chase it. They don't need worship because their confidence comes from within. And you know what's funny? The most respected people in any room are often the quietest ones. They don't force attention. They attract it. They don't bark orders. They inspire discipline just by existing. That's what aura does. You don't speak it. People feel it. 8. Signs you've crossed the line. Here's how to know if your respect has crossed into worship or control. 1. When people stop questioning you, that's not loyalty, that's fear. 2. When you start demanding respect instead of commanding it, that's ego, not strength. 3. When you take disagreement as disrespect, you've built your throne on insecurity. 4. When people's opinions start replacing your own, you've surrendered your power. 5. When honesty disappears, congratulations. You're surrounded by worshipers, not friends. If any of these hit too close to home, then it's time for a reality check. 9. The cure, detachment, and humility. Here's the truth. Power isn't bad. Ego is. The only way to hold power without letting it consume you is through detachment. Detach from praise. Detach from titles. Detach from the idea that you're somehow above others. The moment you think you're untouchable, that's the exact moment your downfall begins. Real power doesn't need to shout. It doesn't demand. It doesn't humiliate. It just exists, calm, grounded, unbothered. The people who have mastered themselves don't want to be worshipped. They just want to stay human in a world full of egos pretending to be gods. So here's the savage truth. Power doesn't corrupt people. The hunger to be worshipped does. If you're really that powerful, you don't need to scream for respect. People will sense it. Your discipline, your composure, your aura. That's what commands respect. But the moment you start begging for it, you've already lost it. And if you're the one doing the worshiping, stop. You can learn from people, admire them, be inspired by them, but never kneel to them. Because the second you put someone on a pedestal, you've already placed yourself below it. So stay grounded, stay sharp, and remember, respect should be mutual. Worship should be reserved for gods. And trust me, half the people demanding respect out here barely even respect themselves. The comment of the day goes to this user, and it reads, "Whoever you are making these videos, you are amazing. Well, whoever you are, watching them, you're the real one."